In the year 2000, a research team found some exoplanets in the Orion Nebula, but there was something particular about the finding. Why? Well, because these planets are just free-floating in space with no home star, which means they are actually isolated planetary mass objects, or as known as rogue planets. For decades, astronomers believe that the universe harbors free-floating planets. These worlds, known as rogue planets, do not belong to any star. However, the question of just how common they are remains a mystery to this day. In our solar system, at least, 8 planets orbit the Sun, and across the Milky Way, nearly every star seems to possess its own planetary system. Yet some astronomers have proposed an unsettling hypothesis. The universe might be teeming with rogue planets, and we know almost nothing about them. Without conducting systematic and in-depth gravitational microlensing surveys, we may never know their true numbers. Scattered throughout the vast expanse of the Milky Way are countless planetary mass objects. Some of them are probably frozen Earths, and others are comparable in size to Jupiter. But unlike the planets we are familiar with, they do not revolve around a star. Instead, they orbit the center of the galaxy directly. These objects actually blur the boundary of brown dwarfs, because many brown dwarfs, especially if their early fusion have ceased, they are basically no different from planets. And if there is an object 10 times the mass of Jupiter, people would argue that whether it is a rogue planet, brown dwarf, or sub-brown dwarf, which is crazy. Of course, this is mostly a definition problem, just like the argument of whether Pluto or even the Moon should be a planet or not. Although the Moon looks small compared to Earth, it is actually one of the largest satellites in the solar system, and definitely much larger than Pluto. The number of rogue planets, though we are still uncertain, could be stunning. You might think a planet leaving the planetary system is a rare event, but a study suggests that the population of these rogue planets may be far greater than we ever imagined, possibly equaling or even doubling the total number of stars in the Milky Way. To hunt for these homeless worlds, astronomers trained their telescopes on a region near the galactic center known as the galactic bulge. Using an ingenious technique known as the gravitational microlensing effect, they made the first direct discovery of 10 rogue planets with masses comparable to Jupiter. Subsequently, by combining the telescope's detection efficiency, the probability of microlensing events, and the relative likelihood of stars versus planets causing these effects, researchers performed a statistical extrapolation for the entire galaxy. The final results were staggering. The Milky Way could harbor as many as 400 billion rogue planets. This figure not only far exceeds the number of main sequence stars, but is over twice the total number of all stars in the galaxy. By the way, even to this date, the primary method for discovering them remains gravitational microlensing, which is just when a rogue planet passes in front of a background star, its gravity acts as a lens, briefly magnifying the starlight and thereby exposing its own existence. These worlds are typically small, cold, and distant. They emit almost no light. Without this technique, they would be practically impossible to detect. Some of the more massive rogue planets, those comparable to Jupiter, have even been captured via direct imaging. It is likely that these formed much like stars do, collapsing directly from the gas and dust of nebulae, meaning they never had a parent star to begin with. However, there is another class of smaller rogue planets believed to have originated within a star system, only to be ruthlessly ejected. Today, these banished worlds drift silently through the cold, dark void between the stars. So how exactly were they kicked out of the house? While several mechanisms are possible, the most common cause likely stems from gravitational interactions between planets. Well, you might think our solar system is perfectly fine the way it is, neat and orderly, but that's an illusion, because our solar system is just a very special case, while most of the other planetary systems in the galaxy are not stable. At any given time, the planets may be whirling around each other, roaming randomly, or just being knocked out of the planetary system. and this had definitely already happened sometime earlier in our solar system. And you guessed it, that was mostly because both of those planets. Research teams have done simulations and found that over the course of 1 billion years of evolution, each planetary system will on average eject up to 3.5 planets, transforming them into rogue planets. Moreover, the vast majority of ejection events occur within the first 100 million years, which is normal because early planetesimals are not stable. Statistically speaking, the probability of any planet being ejected is actually quite similar regardless of its position. Neither inner planets nor outer planets can be considered absolutely safe. Hot Jupiters may play significant roles, because as they spiral into the star, it would fling anything along its path for sure. Of course, there is speculation that the estimate of 400 billion rogue planets may be a significant overestimation. A portion of them might be misclassified brown dwarfs, which brings us back to the issue of ambiguous definitions mentioned earlier. Others argue that these so-called free-floating objects may not be truly ejected planets after all, but ordinary giant planets orbiting stars on extremely wide orbits. This is certainly possible because many massive stars, like blue genes, host planets located at great distances, sometimes up to 1,000 astronomical units or dozens of times farther than Neptune is from the Sun. There are even more radical hypotheses, suggesting that instabilities arising during the evolution of multi-star systems could have generated vast numbers of rogue planets. By now, you might be thinking these planets sound incredibly boring, but here's the plot twist. You might actually want to search for aliens on them. Many astronomers have already debated whether these tiny rogue planets could potentially be habitable. Theoretically, if they still retain radioactive elements in their interiors, the heat released by radioactive decay might be enough to sustain liquid water oceans beneath the ground. Meanwhile, a thick ice shell or a hydrogen-dominated atmosphere could act as excellent insulation and shielding. Of course, whether such worlds are truly habitable remains, for now, purely speculative. But regardless of whether they can harbor life, one practical issue persists. Evidence for these low-mass free-floating planets has, so far, been almost entirely indirect. The reason is simple. The gravitational microlensing signals they produce are too fleeting and faint, making them extremely easy to miss during observations or liable to be overshadowed by other celestial phenomena. However, even if we can't see them, theoretically they must exist, and in vast numbers. So how exactly should I end this video? In the end, maybe we shouldn't feel sorry for these banished worlds. 1. No annoying solar flares, no sunburns, no red giant apocalypse, possibly hosting a civilization of cats who hate the light as much as they do. Apparently, solid 10 out of 10 trip rating. Just hope they don't come around and throw some comets in the Oort cloud to Earth. Thanks for watching and subscribe. I will give you nothing as a gift.